Hey guys, it's Zoe. So today I'm going to be showing you beginner foundation, how to apply foundation for beginners, what tools to use and everything, and especially if you're just getting into it and you're not sure how to make it look right or how to make it blend into your skin. That's what this video is for, so if you want to know, then continue watching. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your skin is prepped and cleansed and moisturized. So I use the Clinique Dramatically Different Moisturizing Gel. They have a lotion for dry skin and the gels for more oily skin. They have a bunch at the drugstore from Clean and Clear, Neutrogena. Just make sure you get a moisturizer for your skin type and make sure that you always apply moisturizer because it will make your makeup go on a lot smoother and prevent dry skin and patchiness and flaking and all of that. I will link down below a video I have on moisturizers and primers so you can see exactly what they do and why it's good to always prep your skin and make sure your skin's clean. Also want to make sure you apply a primer. I use the Laura Geller Spackle Mattifying Oil Control Under Makeup Primer, but again there's a bunch from the drugstore and there's ones for different types of skin. They have anti-aging ones, they have pore filling, oil control, moisturizing, brightening, all different kinds you can think of. They have silicone base, they have like different kinds, so find the one that's right for you. I always recommend oil free though, because you want to make sure your makeup doesn't slip around and slide on your face. You don't have to use a primer, but especially for summer or if you have oily skin or if you're wearing a non-long wearing foundation, I do recommend that you wear a primer. It's just going to make, again, everything go on smoother and look a lot nicer and not sit right on top of your skin and fill into your pores and lines. It's actually going to create a base. Anything you put on your face before makeup is good because it gives the makeup something to stick to, and anything you put on will prime it. So that's why I recommend moisturizer, of course, and then a primer. So then when your makeup does go on, it's going to look a lot better. I just use my fingers to apply primer because it kind of pushes it into my skin and smooths it around a lot better. And I put it especially in my T-zone where I get oily and where I have big pores. And then I just let it soak in a little bit so my makeup doesn't slide around. Just let it dry. Now there's different tools you can use to apply foundation. Obviously, if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, you know that a cult favorite of a lot of people is the Beauty Blender, or the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge is what this one is. It's the closest I have found to the original Beauty Blender. This is like $5.99, $5 at Walmart, and you can buy like a pack of 2 for $10. But they do have the $20 one at Sephora. But the reason that a lot of people really like these is because they changed the makeup world. Like, you know, back in the day, everyone used to use their fingers, or they would use like a brush, and you would have streaks and marks and lines and all this kind of stuff. Especially if you're a beginner, the sponge is beginner friendly. Like, it makes you look like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. I don't recommend investing in a $20 one right away if you're just getting into foundation, because you want to make sure you like it. And this works just as good, honestly. The Real Techniques one, I will link a link down below because it's the best thing ever. This one is clean, it's just stained, and you always want to dampen it underwater, and you squeeze out the water so it's not dripping wet, so you just make sure it's damp, or use a towel to like dry it off. And the reason you want to use this damp is because it's going to soak up the water and not soak up your foundation, because then you're just going to use all your foundation into your sponge, and then you're going to be trying to spread it around on your face, and it's just going to be soaking into the sponge. The damp sponge, actually, since it's soaked up with water, it's not going to use as much product, and you'll be able to blend your foundation a lot better. I do not like it dry, it just doesn't do anything. The Beauty Blender, always make sure your foundation looks flawless. It gets everything blended in. It soaks up any extra product that could be sitting on top of your face if you apply too much or if you're heavy-handed like I am. And it makes sure everything just gets in the creases very well, and it just makes sure it just looks amazing. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but I do recommend getting a sponge because it's so easy, so fast. You bounce it onto your face instead of swiping it. You don't want to swipe off your foundation because then it's pointless. You're wiping off the cover coverage. If you pat it in like this, then you're going to be more likely to get the coverage that you want. There also is foundation brushes that you can use. It depends on the foundation. Some foundations I found work better with a sponge, and some of them actually work better with a brush. You do tend to get a little bit more coverage depending on the foundation and depending on the brush. We do get more coverage with a brush sometimes. If you ever watch those foundation reviews where they do one half of their face in a sponge and they do one half with the brush, a lot of times the brush does give you more coverage because it packs on the foundation. But again, sometimes you don't want to do that because it'll just look really cakey, and you can always build up the coverage with the sponge. But these are the old-fashioned brushes. I still like using these if I'm really concentrating on a certain area, or if I'm doing something under my eyes, or if my sponges are disgusting. You know, sometimes you end up using a brush. So this is just a tiny one from Ecotools, and this is like a really old one. I don't even know where it's from, but the point is, they have synthetic hair, and what that means is it's not going to be like a powder brush hair where the bristles are natural hair or whatever kind of hair they are, and they do not go well with liquid products. They actually stick to them, and then it ruins your brush hairs, and it's really hard to clean them and get it off, and it's gross, and it makes your foundation look horrible. If you use a brush that has synthetic hairs, you'll be able to clean it and it will not stick, and it's actually meant for cream and liquid products, so you can use those. I will show you in the video a little bit on how to apply these. The only problem with these is sometimes they can leave streaks. You'll have to go back over with a sponge or go back over with your finger or a different brush to really smooth out any kind of line. Another brush I really like for foundation is a stippling brush, and these are also made with synthetic hair. And the reason they're called stippling brushes is because if you look at the bristles, they're actually really precise and kind of look pokey, but it's fine. And then you just blend it into your skin, and you can kind of stipple it on, and it leaves like these really cool designs on your face. That's literally what it is. It's a stippling brush, and then you can blend it in, but a lot of it is stippling, and it makes your foundation blend in really nicely. People use stippling brushes for a lot of different things, so that's really universal too. This is the e.l.f. small stipple brush, by the way. They have bigger ones. This is just a tinier one. This is the e.l.f. buffing brush. Another one I really like is the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It always makes your foundation look really good, and it always has really good coverage. So this one's kind of like that. It's a buffing brush, so you can really buff the product into your skin. You can use this for powder as well, any part of your face, but you just buff this into your skin and it kind of smooths it out. And with brushes like these that have like a round top, you don't want to like pat it because that's not really going to do anything. You don't want to swipe it either though. You more want to like go into a circular motion, like a buffing motion, and really work it into your skin in small sections and really get it blended. And with any kind of foundation you're applying, even if you're using a different tool, you always want to go downwards and not upwards, because the natural hairs on your face, yes, everyone has natural hairs on their face, they will go upwards if you're trying to buff your foundation up, and it's going to stick and look gross, and it doesn't work. So the natural hairs on your face automatically go down, so if you want to hide that and make it look natural, then always go downwards when you're blending. Now for foundation, obviously that's a personal preference. That's a whole separate video, but if you do have oily skin like I do, combo to oily skin, I will link below a video where I recommend my favorite drugstore ones. If you have dry skin, I'm sorry, but there's a bunch of videos on YouTube that you can search. There's so many different foundations, like that's your personal preference. But for the time being, I'm just going to use the Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation, and this is the one in soft beige, which is a light medium. It has like 5 different names on it. Anyways, this is what it looks like. This is a very universal foundation. A lot of people really like this. There's so many reviews on YouTube, and what I do is I just watch a review on a foundation before I go buy it and make sure like a lot of people like it. From the drugstore, it's literally $5, $5.99. Really good foundation. It doesn't have a flashback, it doesn't have SPF, so it doesn't cause a white cast, and it looks really good in pictures, has really good coverage. And I have oily skin. I know people who have dry skin who use it, and it's really good. You turn it, and it has a little spatula. If you want to be more sanitary, you can put it on the back of your hand and then put it from your hand to your face, but we don't have time for that, so I'm just gonna put the stick on my face because it's my foundation, so I'm going to spread my bacteria. And this is a really handy tool. Like the spatula just kind of like lets you put it on. It's nice because I do this with my finger anyway, is like poke it out my skin. So you kind of just want to like start at one section at a time. so the foundation doesn't dry when you're trying to blend a different section. So obviously for this cheek, I'm going to use the Beauty Blender so you can see how this works. I love it, and as you can see, I just have my face all polka dotted, and I prefer to put it on my face and then blend it with the sponge. Some people will dip their sponge straight into the foundation and then put it on. It's just your personal preference, like I said, but I feel like it soaks up less if you put it on your face first, and then you just pat it and do patting motions into your skin and just, you know, obviously blend it in. And I do go down my neck, obviously, and it's automatically blended in. Like, I did not have to try that hard. It was really quick and easy, and it's foolproof. It literally looks like I could do my foundation amazingly, even though it was literally the sponge. And it's almost full coverage. You can see, I'll do a close-up at the very end. You can see how amazing that looks. And a lot of people, if your foundation has a pump, like a little pump, you can pump it onto the back of your hand, and so you don't have to have it on your fingers trying to grab and touch stuff. You just put it on the back of your hand and dip your finger and wash your hands afterwards. Even if it has a squeezy tube, a lot of people do that instead of squeezing it directly on their sponge. If it doesn't have a pump or a squeezy tube and it's more like a pour out, that really sucks, but you can just pour it onto the back of your hand again and hopefully not get too much, or you can kind of use your finger. Some people dip it. Like I said, each thing is different. So with this side, I'm going to attempt, I haven't used one of these in a really long time, attempt to use this foundation brush, the traditional regular foundation brush. So with these, you want to go in downward strokes, and I just realized I put on enough to use my Beauty Blender, and this is a lot. So we're gonna, you know, take some onto my chin, and you just go in downward strokes. And this is what I mean by sometimes you end up with a lot of streaks, because you have to work really hard with this kind, and you have to really blend and make sure it's in your hairline and make sure there's no lines or creasing left. As you can see, this side isn't as flawless looking. There's a lot of different areas that don't look as blended, so you have to keep working with it. It's not that fun, especially if you're in a hurry in the morning. But this is how you use those brushes. I like these for like touch-ups or like I said, more concentrated areas. So I'm gonna go back in with my sponge, and you just blend it all in, and look how amazing it works. It's just, by the way, this video is not sponsored. I just really like this sponge. And then you just, you know, blend it in, and then it just soaked up all those lines, got rid of all the weird looking things. And as you can see, I actually think the sponge gave me better coverage by the end than the brush did, because most of the foundation is on this brush. Now for my forehead, I'm going to use the stippling brush so I can show you how to use those. I'm gonna have all different kinds of looks today because my foundation's gonna look so uneven by the time I'm done with different brushes. And different brushes will give you a different finish with your foundation. Sometimes it'll be more full coverage, sometimes it'll be lighter coverage. That's why it just depends. But I think most foundations work with the Beauty Blender, not all of them work with the brush. So now I'm gonna use the stippling brush, and you kind of literally stipple it onto your face. And since this one is a small stipple brush, it's more time consuming, but you can buy a regular size one. And this one's really cool because it really blends it into your skin and presses it, so you're not having excess foundation sitting on top of your face. And you just blend it all out. They do kind of exaggerate any texture you have on your face. Any kind of dry patch or anything, it will kind of exaggerate that, which is also what I don't like about brushes sometimes. But it does look pretty good. Made my forehead look a little dry. Again, my personal preference, so it doesn't bother me. I'm going back over it with a sponge. So there is with the stippling brush. As you can see, I still think the sponge side looks the best. Even though it gives you like the best coverage, it still is the most natural looking. You don't see the foundation. It kind of makes it look like my skin, has the perfect amount, doesn't cling to anything, and it's just very skin-like. compared to, you know, the brush side where you can kind of see everything. Then for my nose and chin, I guess, since that's the only really spot left on my face, I'm going to use the buffing brush, which is comparable to the Real Techniques one, which I actually really do like, especially if I want full coverage. I'm going to use the buffing brush, and this one is the one where you actually do circular motions and buff it into your skin. I always have a problem with foundation actually sticking to my nose. Like, it always comes off, even when I first apply it. So if you guys know anything about that or have that same problem, let me know. And even though I put primer on, like, you can still see all the color on the tip of my nose. Like, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Anyways, the thing about the nose is that's why I like the sponge or smaller brushes. You can really get to the crevices, so there's not like just a glob of foundation on the crease of your nose. And you kind of want to do that around your smile lines too, so they don't crease, and the dip of your chin. And your eyebrows, you want to make sure those are all blended. And then I really like to blend everything into my hairline, so there's not just a separate line from where your hairline is and where your foundation starts. Now lastly, I'm going to go back and do one more layer with the sponge just to make sure everything's even and covered. The good thing about foundation, if it's not full coverage, you can always build it up. You can use it as a concealer and use it on concentrated areas, or you can just do more layers. Obviously, you don't want to go too crazy depending on the foundation and how natural it looks, but you can build it up to make it medium to full coverage on your preference. But since we have all different kinds of looks on my face right now, I'm going to even it out with my sponge. And another tip is, obviously everyone hears about this, but bring it down your neck, please, just for the sake of like life. Just bring it down your neck. It's like, it takes 5 extra seconds. Even if the foundation matches you perfectly, even if it's your skin tone, you will still see the difference from your actual skin on your neck to your makeup face, especially after you add bronzer and blush and powder and all of that. It can change colors, so you really don't want that line of just where your foundation stops. You really want to blend it down your neck, so I just kind of quickly blend it down. Especially if you're wearing like a low-cut shirt and your face looks a lot darker than your neck, you really want to, you know, apply it wherever you can so it looks natural. Wow, on camera this looks like intense. Okay, there we go. So you just blend this down, and so you don't have that definite line of where it stops and starts, and it'll look more natural that way. And I always make sure I go back over everything even after it's blended and soak up any extra product sitting on top of my face so it's not cakey and slippery and gross, and you just pat it all in, obviously. And I just look up close. I get into a close mirror and I make sure that I didn't miss anything, you know, by your ears, and there's not any lines left. I forgot to mention, you can also use your fingers to blend your foundation. I mean, that's a traditional way. I personally don't like it just because it's like all over my hands, and then I have to make sure I don't put too much on a certain area, and then again I feel like I have too much sitting on top of my skin. But sometimes with certain foundations, it actually looks better to use your fingers, especially if you're in a hurry, or any kind of BB creams or any kind of like light coverage product. Your fingers kind of warm it up into your skin and kind of press it into your skin a lot better and melt it. So that's also a quick way to do it. You don't have to have any tools, but like I said, depending on the tool, sometimes you'll get a better look. So if you already do use your fingers and you're not liking how it's looking, then maybe you should try a different way. And you know, there's videos on YouTube on applying foundation with your fingers and making it actually look good. I personally, like I said, don't like it, but you can just kind of, again, press it in and make sure you blend everything just like we did with the other tool. So real quickly, I'm just going to show you concealer because that's part of the kind of liquid face coverage products. So this is just the Maybelline Fit Me concealer. I also have a video on concealers. It will be linked down below what any of this stuff does if you're really confused. I have a foundation video on the different kinds. Also will be linked down below. So I'm just going to quickly show you concealer, because you can use concealer as foundation, you can use foundation as concealer, they kind of go hand in hand. Concealer does tend to have a little bit more full coverage than foundation does naturally, because you're supposed to conceal what the foundation didn't cover or really concentrate on your imperfections, but it does kind of complete the look as using concealer. So I know you guys have probably heard of the triangle method, where you do a V under your eye and then fill it in. This is the most flattering way to really brighten up your eye, because if you just put it right where your dark circles are, it can actually kind of do the opposite effect and highlight your under eye circles and really draw attention to them. So if you bring it down past that area, it'll really blend everything really nicely. You won't see a color randomly stop under your eye. Again, beauty sponge, you can use any of these products. I just take it and pat it in, because I tend to go heavy with concealer, so this kind of helps it look a lot better. And then I also take a little bit on my eyelid just to conceal any veins, discoloration, and prepare for eyeshadow, just to even out the color and make it look nice and make sure everything's all one color on my face. And you can use your finger. I love using my finger for concealer. Just make sure you use your ring finger, because it has the lightest touch, and you want to pat, again, not rub, because you don't want to tug on your eye. And then I just set everything like that. And then you can also use your concealer, again, on blemishes, whatever the foundation didn't cover. Some people do concealer first. It's just a personal preference. I'm going to pat, because if you pat around the blemish, it'll actually cover it more than wiping it off. Like I said, you want to blend all around the blemish. And I have this one that's not covering it all, but we're just going to ignore that. It's a whole separate, like I said, a whole separate video on highlighting with concealers. That's again a different thing, but just to really brighten up the under eyes, because all I did right now was just cancel out the darkness. Now I'm going to brighten and highlight right there. This is the Maybelline Super Stay Better Skin concealer and corrector, and this is in the shade Ivory, and it's a little bit lighter than my skin, so I can actually brighten that area, because you don't want concealer darker, because you'll again just be darkening under your eye. And I kind of get right here where my eye's really dark, and again do the same triangle effect. I'm not going to do the whole highlighting your whole face with concealer right now, because I'm again just focusing on how to apply the items for your face. And you again don't have to use all of this concealer. More of it's just to really help your under eyes and cover that discoloration and darkness from your lack of sleep. So there is the finished coverage. We have everything where we want it. Again, you can take away some coverage, you can add more coverage, do whatever you want, but you just want to make sure everything is even out. There's no redness, there's no darkness, everything just looks really nice. And right now I look flat, but that's fine. Now we're just going to set everything, because you do not want to have anything creasing or coming off or looking shiny or oily and, you know, separating and all of that. Again, depending on your skin, if you have oily skin or even combo skin, I do recommend at least setting it with some kind of powder, or at least in your T-zone where you tend to get oily, and under your eyes. Always set under your eyes, because we all have those like smile and laugh lines, and it will crease and just look really gross. Excuse the train if you hear a train, I apologize. Anyways, so I have oily skin, so I always set all over my face. Some people, you know, if they have dry skin, they might not need to. Depending also on the foundation you use. If it's a matte foundation, you may not need to use a powder. Again, there's a ton of powder, different kinds from the drugstore. This is just the Avon Flawless Mattifying Pressed Powder, but I have the translucent one because I do not like adding extra coverage on top of my foundation, because I feel like that's what your foundation is supposed to do. So if I have to add more powder to cover up more, it's just kind of, it starts to look cakey, and then if your powder doesn't match your foundation exactly, you'll be a different color. So I always tend to go lighter colors, like lighter shades with my foundations, just in case. And this is a translucent one, so it can go on any skin tone and match anyone, and it's not going to add more coverage. All it's doing is setting my foundation, controlling the shine and the oil, and making it last longer throughout the day. Flat top kabuki brush, and I I prefer using a brush for powder, not the little sponge that come with them. Your preference, like I said, but the sponges tend to get gross for one, and two, people tend to swipe them when they're setting their face, and again, what's that gonna do? Take off all that time you just spent covering that pimple, and then you just wiped it off with your powder. That's why I do not like swiping. If you do use one of those little sponges, like on the go, I like to use them to touch up if you're oily. Make sure you, again, pat kind of like you're blotting your face, and pat where you need it, but it does tend to kind of look weird. I just prefer a brush. Any kind of big fluffy powder brush will work, and I am patting in the powder. I'm not swiping or buffing it into my skin because, again, that's not going to do anything that we just got done doing. And the more dense the brush is, the more coverage, I guess, you will get. If you use a more flimsy brush, it's just going to lightly dust on the powder. If you use a more stiff brush, it will put on more product. Now for the under eyes. Baking, and if you've seen any of that, is a whole separate video again, but just setting the under eyes is, I think, is the most important part, so you do not look gross. I always try to take a smaller brush like this for under my eye area so it's more concentrated. You can use the same powder if you want, especially if it's a brightening or lighter than your skin tone, because you don't want to like put a dark powder on top of your brightening concealer, because that does absolutely nothing. And I also do my eyelids. I get really oily eyelids, and my concealer was already starting to crease on my eyelids because I didn't set it fast enough. So you make sure you smooth everything out and then set it in place. So now we're really all up close and personal, but here is a close-up of my face. Again, we're gonna ignore that mountain right here that just decides not to do anything. But everything's evened out. I have no more redness. Everything looks one color. If you feel like you look too powdery or too cakey, or you just have oily skin or really want your makeup to last all day, I recommend a makeup setting spray. This is the Avon makeup setting spray. They have one from e.l.f, they have L'Oreal, Maybelline, a bunch of different kinds. It's basically just a bunch of ingredients. Who knows? It could be water at this point. We all don't know. It could be like a gimmick, but I really feel like it does help my makeup stay on longer and does get rid of that kind of powdery look and kind of gives you a more fresh face. You just kind of hold it 8 to 10 inches away. You can do an X. I spray it all over like a bunch of times, probably unnecessarily a lot, but you know, it's fine. It's like, and it's so refreshing and just really makes your makeup look flawless. And you can do it at the very end when you're done with your full face as well. You can do it before your makeup to kind of prep and prime. You can do it after each product. Some people literally will spray after everything they apply, and it just kind of soaks up any extra and just makes it look really nice and natural. I do look like a ghost right now because I haven't added blush or bronzer or highlight or any of my eye makeup or eyebrows or anything, so that's why it kind of looks weird. So again, I'll be doing a separate video on blush and bronzer and all of that, but now you know how to apply your foundation. It's more for like getting your coverage. It's not really like to mask your face. It's more to get everything even and get everything one color, and that's your base, and then from there you add any colors and everything you want to do. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will be doing a separate foundation routine soon that will be linked down below, like what products I use and how I do my foundation, but this video just kind of went in depth on how to apply it so you can use any foundation you want. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this was helpful. I will also leave down below my beginner eyeshadow and how to do that as well. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you later.